Hello, welcome to On Air with Yoga for First Responders. I am Olivia, founder and CEO, and with me is Aurelia June Brenneman.
That's right.
She is
She's here. She is
co-host.
here.
She is there, and then of course her handler is there too, Eric Brenneman, president of Yoga for First Responders, my baby daddy and baby handler.
I mean, talk about a moment in history. We're going to literally document that she just escaped her room. Like she was in her room sleeping. All of a sudden, I heard the door opened up behind me and she's standing in the hallway. Like now she's just on a
15 months.
podcast.
Yeah, she's 15 months old. She has not been able to open doors, and her room is right next to the office. And Eric heard her door open. Like, what the heck? So, right after we record this, we're headed to Walmart to get some of the door handle protectors. Great. So, let me
So
tell you.
you had an interesting conversation. Like you've been telling me about this podcast. You're excited about this one.
Yes. So I just spoke to Patch. Patch is the comfort dog. I'm sorry, not Patch, Justin Breton. That's who I was talking to. Yes. Yeah.
Well, let's be honest. Like,
Let's be honest. It's about Patch, really. But
because anybody who watched like our Instagram, we just got done with an instructor school and it was all dogs. And yet you didn't go there.
no. And I'm so upset about it. I'm getting all these pictures from our last instructor school of comfort dogs all over everyone's mat. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like the one that I'm not going to this year, and that's where the comfort dogs are. So Justin Breton is with Manchester, New Hampshire Police Department, and they have an excellent wellness program. And I do not say that lightly. We work with so many agencies, and people are trying, some people aren't trying, and some people are excelling. And so if you're listening to this and you've been put in charge of health and wellness of your department, these are people that, to follow and see what they're doing. So Officer Justin Breton has over 15 years of law enforcement experience. He's married to his wife, Crystal, and they have 4 young boys together. In his current professional role, Officer Breton is the Mental Health and Wellness Coordinator of Manchester, New Hampshire Police Department. Officer Breton has a BA in social work from the University of New Hampshire. Now, this is interesting because I was asking him how he became a cop.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go into social work. And you'll hear this on the podcast, so I don't want to spoil anything. But they were like, oh, you want to reach the people? You want to help people? Become a cop.
No way.
When you get into it. So he was like, okay, will do. From 2006 to 2008, Officer Breton was a child protective services worker for the New Hampshire Division for Children, Youth, and Families. From 2008 to 2010, Officer Breton was a member of the Hopkinton, oh Lord, I hope I said that correctly, Hopkinton, New Hampshire Police Department, where he held the position of patrol officer. Since 2020, oh my God, you can keep that in.
2020. I mean, I literally disappeared and came back, and I don't think you noticed.
Oh, I noticed. You were chasing our toddler around as I was about to.
This is reality, folks. This is reality.
So in 2020, Officer Breton has been a member of Manchester, New Hampshire Police Department. Officer Breton began his career at MPD in the patrol division. Before assuming his current position, he was a detective in the department's child abuse and sexual exploitation unit from 2012 to 2017, and then a member of the department's violent crime unit from 2017 to 2021. Now, let me tell you something. You just heard the shit. Yes, that I'm not even done yet, that Justin Breton has encountered. You will not meet a sweeter man. Honestly, this guy is sweet. He's honest. He's funny. He's lighthearted. And he has clearly seen some shit that would make me punch a wall. Yeah. I mean, I hit traffic today and I was like, today's the worst day of my life. So can you imagine?
A resource for getting stuck in traffic.
What do you say?
If only there was a resource for getting stuck in traffic.
Yeah, if only there was an app where you could do some breath work. But anyway, at least I know the resource is there. So as a detective, Officer Breton served as a team leader on the department's SPEAR team, crime scene team, and a team leader on the department's identification unit. Officer Breton is an active member of the Special Weapons and Tactics SWAT team, crisis negotiator unit. I would, God, I didn't know that before I spoke to him, because
Oh yeah.
otherwise I would have been like, crisis negotiation is basically the tenets of yoga. We need to do a whole podcast on that. We'll probably have Justin back.
Yeah, bring it back.
Mobile crisis response team, adverse childhood experiences response team, crisis response unit, and the coordinator of the department's critical incident stress management and peer support team. Officer Breton was recently selected to be the department's first comfort dog handler. About time. That guy's had such a career that it's like, yeah, please be in charge of the dogs.
No joke.
I mean, like, he deserves it. Officer Breton is a member of the New Hampshire Police Association's executive board, as well as a coordinator of the Southern New Hampshire Critical Incident Stress Management Team. I didn't even realize that I was like in the presence of such greatness.
Man,
I knew he was awesome by just like what the team said about him. But now I can add to the list humble too. So you guys, if you want to know a humble dude who has tons of experience in everything, this is the podcast for you. So please enjoy. And Eric, you haven't even heard this.
I'm excited to listen to it. I'm excited to listen.
Yeah, so this is going to be a good one. So enjoy. Welcome to Yoga for First Responders on Air, where we break down yoga, neuroscience, resilience, and public safety in a manner that's authentic, educational, and most importantly, entertaining and lighthearted. I'm YFFR's founder, Olivia Mead. As a yoga instructor and neuroscience enthusiast, I'm passionate about supporting first responders and anyone looking to improve their overall human performance. Each week, we'll dive into a new topic and often bring on expert guests to share their insights and experiences. But we'll also keep it real and share our own stories and struggles along the way. So whether you're a first responder or seeking to master the science of mental and physical resilience, this podcast is your ultimate guide to triumph over life's challenges with unbreakable strength and unwavering fortitude. By pressing play, your training has begun. Awesome. Justin, I'm so happy to meet you.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be here and to be invited to join the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Now, the first thing, there's the baby, right on time.
I couldn't hear it.
So the first thing I want to address is that, I wasn't at your instructor school. We had other people from our team, but the stars of the show were the dogs. That's all we got pictures of were the dogs. And I thought the dogs were going to be there like day one, make a little, appearance, kiss babies, shake some hands, and then be on their way. And then they're just like, and I'm like, of course, this is the instructor school I don't go to, is the one with the dogs. So tell me a little bit about the comfort dogs and their involvement in this whole thing at large and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've really been an instrumental part of our process to really help build relationships, create bridges to community-based support services. And honestly, just anyone we interact with, just take a deep breath, feel like themselves, and really help engage in any type of services that we're trying to introduce. So, our comfort dogs are trained in therapy work and crisis response. So there's over 20 now all around New Hampshire. We had a few dogs that were coming in and out of training, but most of our handlers are also trained peer supporters through the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. So we're utilizing the dogs in all of our wellness programs. So that's why you got to see them tagging along with us at the YFFR training.
So cool. So the dogs are for law enforcement personnel and for the public when there's incidents?
Correct. Yeah. So each of our programs look a little different. Some of us are more community outreach direction, and there are others, like my program is primary for officer wellness and employee wellness. So each of our services look a little bit different. Patch and I are on all of our community outreach teams, but primarily we focus on wellness programs all day, every day.
Amazing. Is Patch there with you right now?
He is.
God,
He's the only officer that doesn't get in trouble for sleeping on the job.
why are
So
you holding out on me? This should have been the first thing. Oh, hi, baby. Oh my gosh.
he say hi?
He's like, he's the star of our Instagram already. Hi, sweet. We're going to do a calendar just on the comfort dogs. Hi, baby. Oh my gosh. You know,
So yeah,
this is, so when I taught yoga in the VA, the two programs that they said were the most, effective for them, for the veterans, was the yoga program and the equine therapy program.
Yeah.
And just the power of animals, and we would have a couple service dogs that would come into my class, with their veteran. And it really gave me this idea that, because my dog would do this for me when I would do neural reset and, or any breath exercise, she would put her head on my belly, just like we have you put a block on your belly to better feel the breath. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we, incorporated these things together? I actually met with a therapy dog company. We couldn't get it going, just we didn't have the capacity for it. And then I had the idea, and I talked to the police department I was working with at the time. Retired canine dogs have the same issues that retired officers, human officers have. They lose their purpose in life. They get depressed, they get sick. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to take the retired canines and we're going to train them to be the yoga dogs. And the officer I was talking to was like, yeah, you're going to die in that. Like they would just
I'm very glad he told you that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was
had
like,
some good advice.
Right. Copy that. Understood. But it was like this big idea that I was going to help all the retired law enforcement officers, 2 legs and 4 legs. Anyway, so yeah, I want to just cover right away that how cool. I mean, it just sounds like what a robust program that you've done, and it sounds really successful, which is cool. So it seems to me, and again, what's cool about talking with you is since I wasn't there and I haven't met you officially yet, these questions are like legit. I'm looking from an outsider's perspective. And it seems to me that you guys take a program, the bull by the horns, and you make it happen. Is that the case?
We absolutely do. Yeah. The whole goal of our entire wellness program is to genuinely create programs that reach in rather than expecting our peers to reach out.
Right.
We know that no matter how hard we work to break down the stigma or break down any barriers to wellness programs, it's still going to be difficult, right, for our peers to step up and say, hey, this is affecting me. I need help. And so we have to create programs that they want to engage in, that they want to show up for, and that they actually get immediate value from. So that way they keep coming back. And the whole approach is to be proactive versus reactive. So if we can get them in there and practicing these things and working on themselves before it becomes an issue, that's what this is all about for us. So
yeah, that is super key. And as you know, that's our philosophy too. I mean, that was sort of, sometimes I say that I started YFFR out of spite. And it sounds negative, but what I mean is I would get to the point of being really annoyed. So I'm just going to make this myself, right? So when I started working in this world of wellness, I was so annoyed, like you said, that, we have a lot of resources for our office. I hate that word. They're not going to get it. Many reasons, the fact that the stigma is there is one, but also even if they really, really want to, they weren't given the time or the space to even do it, Exactly. And so, making it part of your training, and as I talk about a lot, it's cumulative stress that has the same effect as a traumatic event, right? And so it's not a matter of, am I going to run into a critical incident where I'm going to need support? It's the cumulative stress that means it's going to happen. So it needs to be part of training from the beginning, so have you guys, and I know it's hard due to, just speaking of the word resources, but like resources of the department, have you guys been successful in being able to find and cut out some time to be able to take advantage of these resiliency tools for your personnel?
We do. So we do a lot of proactive training.
Mhm.
So all of our new hires receive a block of education on mental health and wellness, summary of the support services that are available, and then mainly how to access them if and
Yeah.
when they need it. We've incorporated a block of training in our in-service training week, which every officer goes throughout the course of the year. And our topics really vary based on what themes we're seeing at the peer support level.
Yeah.
So first year we talked about burnout and compassion fatigue. We've talked about financial wellness, physical fitness, sleep, nutrition, all of those really basic principles of wellness and resiliency. We work those through. We've tried to create incentive-based policies, fitness incentives. But I think some of us are the most excited about some of the ways the YFFR curriculum is going to be able to be worked into all that.
Okay, cool. So since you brought it up, how do you foresee it being worked in?
We've already had a lot of conversations about it. There's a lot of people that were excited. When you're introducing anything new in the law enforcement community, I'm sure you may have heard this before. There's two things that every officer hates: the way things are and change.
Yep.
Yeah. So
That's
that's
like number one thing I've dealt with as I'm like,
yeah.
hello, I'm new, so.
Yep. So as you can imagine, and you've been to countless at least over 32 instructor schools now, the first couple of days, the participants are gun ho. You're embedded in the police department. There's a lot of skeptical looks coming from the other officers that are wandering around the building.
Yeah.
But as soon as they started to see us work and see the practice that we were doing, the questions really transitioned to, why didn't I do that, or what was I thinking, not signing up for that? And so we're super excited to incorporate some of this. We're going to immediately start working it into our new hire training. So we should have a whole group of new officers starting within the next couple of weeks. And we have a pretty robust pre-academy program here at the department that they go through before they go up to the state academy.
Oh,
So
great.
we're going to
Yeah.
be working it into their morning fitness routine. So I think at a minimum of 2 days a week now, they'll be with us. We had 9 instructors from the Manchester Police Department go through the school. So we'll all rotate through for those initially, the open mat classes with those folks until we all finish our certification.
Yeah.
We'll do those open mat classes with them as soon as possible. We're going to work it into our in-service training this year. So we have 20 sessions where all of our sworn employees will be working through, and they'll be going through at least an hour of that curriculum.
Yeah.
And then we're also looking to incorporate it into some of our mandatory civilian training as well.
That is so awesome. You guys are like gold standard. And it's
Good.
seriously, it's similar to what Chicago Police Department is doing. They're also the gold standard of implementing YFFR because it's in their new hire, it's in their in-service training, it's mandated. Every 20,000 sworn officers have gone through the training, So yeah, and even I always say too, if you get, I'm not necessarily selling yoga. I think yoga is the best training tool and vehicle for this personally. But what I'm selling is you have to have a proactive resilience tool. Otherwise, you're being irresponsible. That's what I'm really trying to say. So for you, if for someone, they get the YFR in service, they understand resilience, mindfulness, the concepts of breath. Okay, great. But I'm going to apply this to the bike ride I do every morning. Great. That's it. If you're applying all of those concepts, you're doing yoga on a bicycle,
Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. You introduce them and they have the tool and they can apply it however they want. And mostly people do realize yoga is the way to apply all of those things most easily,
It really is. The breath work is one of the most impressive components of the program, to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
We even had one of our instructors that went through the instructor school. She recently went through our taser recertification. We're upgrading our tasers, and there's a pretty comprehensive scenario-based portion of that class. And so the officers are waiting to go through the scenarios, and she's doing recovery breaths and coherency breaths before she's going into these scenarios and talking to her peers about all of this.
Yeah.
And so it's already benefiting us in so many different ways.
Has she mentioned that it supported or changed things for her by doing that breath before the scenario?
Yeah, I think we all have.
Good.
We talked about especially the Thursday, the skills day.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got to hear the feedback from our debrief on that as a class, but that was life changing for some of our participants that were in that school. The fact that at portions of it they thought that they were going to rip that mask off, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to complete the task.
Yeah.
But they went into those cognitive declarations. They slowed down their breathing. They were being present on that moment versus allowing some of those other critical incidents that were trickling in and bothering them. They were able to set that aside and really get through that. We had multiple people from my team experience that,
Yeah.
and the officer that I was just speaking about, she even said that she's utilizing it in her day-to-day patrol work right now as well, and it's already helping. So
That's exactly, I mean, A plus. Like that's exactly how it should be implemented. And like it gives me chills to hear that because that was my goal from the very first moment I taught a class to vets and to first responders was like, please use this every day like you're drinking water. Like,
yeah.
so that's awesome. Speaking of that Thursday, this is actually so a couple days ago we got an email and it was from someone who wants to attend instructor school. It's a civilian.
Mm-hmm.
And this person said, I see on the schedule, or I see, that we have to do tactical skills and combat, learn about combat performance. And she said, I am in no way interested in that. Is there any way I can skip that portion because I don't plan on I plan to implement YFFR in more of therapy sessions or this or that. Now, of course, we make everyone do everything, and I can explain why. But from
Yeah.
your point of view, can you explain why it would be important for a civilian to experience that tax skills day alongside, the first responders and the civilians are doing it together in,
Absolutely.
typical open instructor schools? What would you say to that woman that wrote us that email?
I mean, I would strongly encourage her to participate. I think it will absolutely be one of the most beneficial learning environments that she'll ever put herself in. Not only will she be doing it alongside the first responders that I presume she's looking to further support down the road, whatever professional realm she works in, whether she's a licensed clinician or a trained yoga instructor, or even a civilian employee. Civilian employees, I can't imagine the benefits for them just because I know how much it could benefit an officer. But to work alongside of your team in that instructor school and participate in those very, very challenging activities is extremely important because even as an instructor, you're going to need to and want to be able to help your participants of your classes through that process. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes first responder training is so intense. It's always scenario based. We're putting ourselves through the same scenarios that we're going to be working on the street because we need to know how to react when it really happens, right?
Yeah.
And I think for anybody working with first responders, they're really going to want to be able to talk to how this is impacting them, how this is affecting them, how the very challenging aspects of that skills day are showing up for the first responders, how they're reacting physically, how they're reacting cognitively, emotionally, spiritually, all those things that happen when you're in that mask and you can't see and you can't breathe and you're trying to harness all of those skills that you learned for the week. You absolutely have to experience that to be able to show up in a way that the first responders are going to need you to show up to be able to help them through that. So I would absolutely encourage her or him to do it, because it will not only be life-changing for them, but it'll absolutely make them a better support service for any first responder that they want to reach.
Isn't it amazing that when you put the mask on, like you mentioned, spiritual, it's like all realms of who you are
Right.
come to the forefront. I
Yes.
mean, that's why I would say this too, is that it's not that skills day. Yes, it's for civilians to understand job specific skills. But if we're training, processing stress and building resilience, you got to train under stress. You
Absolutely.
got to practice it. So
Yes.
regardless if it happens to be a skill for public safety, it's a stressor,
Yeah.
I think it also, so I built the academy curriculum while going through the academy. And I tell you what, while being next to my students in the academy environment, they actually listened to me more in the yoga classes. It gives credibility. just the fact that we're willing to dip your toe in those skills, I think gives credibility. And the other thing too is, like I mentioned in the beginning of training, people think that yoga is about the down regulation, right? We're only working on relaxation or whatever. But a really strong autonomic fitness and nervous system means you can be in high stress and regulate afterwards, right? Activation, regulation, activation, regulation. So if you take out the whole portion of activation, then you don't have a strong nervous system, so it's each piece of the puzzle. So I'm glad that we brought that up. So tell me how you got to the seat you're in right now. Why is this something that you're, really passionate about, you advocate for? How did you get there?
Yeah, I always joke I kind of became a police officer by accident. So believe it or not, I went to school to be a trained social worker. After I graduated, I worked for the Division for Children, Youth, and Families, which in New Hampshire is the organization that investigates child abuse and sexual exploitation. Because of that investigative role that I had with that agency, I had a great professional relationships with a lot of different law enforcement agencies in our county. And I always joke that one of the local police chiefs convinced me that I would be much more helpful at reaching people and connecting with people as a police officer than a social worker. And he said, "Come and work for me." So I made that jump, and
intersects like that,
it really does, because I mean, let's be honest, nobody calls the police when they've had a litter of puppies or they got an A on the report card, right? So they're always,
next time I have a litter, call it 911. I want everyone to have a good day, so come and watch these puppies be born.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wish they would, but let's be honest, that never happens. So I started in a much smaller town than Manchester. One of the officers that trained me came down here, and once he was here, he said, "You got to come down. It's the place that every officer in New Hampshire should be working. You got to come down." And I did. I made the jump. It was a very kind of an intimidating jump, going from one of a smaller city or a smaller town in New Hampshire coming to the largest city north of Boston. But I've had a completely blessed law enforcement career ever since I got here. So, with that though becomes a lot of exposure to critical incidents, and it was genuinely from a series of critical incidents that happened for our agency that got me to the position that I'm in today. So in 2008, we had one of our officers murdered in the city. And then following that, we also had another officer who was almost murdered on the west side. And after those two critical incidents, from our first homicide, we didn't have a lot of support services in place. And it wasn't because we didn't believe in it. It's just because we didn't know. As a profession, that wasn't where we were yet.
Right. You said this was 2008?
That was in 2008.
Yeah, because I noticed, I started to get into this world around 2012, 2013, and it was only then that the door was starting to be open. So I can imagine 2008, yeah, there was the awareness of that.
It really wasn't. And unfortunately, our second almost loss of an officer happened right in that 2012 window that you were talking about. And it was at that point that as an agency, we really said we wanted to do a better job taking care of each other. We're very fortunate to have Boston PD come up, and they offered for us what we knew as our very first critical incident stress debriefing. And that really started our agency off on creating the wellness program that we very proudly have today.
Wow.
Very lucky to be in my position, to be brutally honest. And so that people that are going and helping others is a huge responsibility and honor and privilege that no one on our team takes lightly.
Wow. And so what's your official position then?
So my official title is the Mental Health and Wellness Coordinator for the agency. Okay, so I get to be responsible for the wellness programs for all of our employees. And we're not the largest police department in New England by any means, but we have 300 and about 365 employees total. 260 plus or minus sworn. And we're definitely geographically the largest city north of Boston.
This is great. There are Eric sometimes likes to say this too, and it's true. We have the privilege of getting to work with so many different agencies, and a lot of people, well, everyone, if you're in public safety, you're only really working unless you've changed agencies like you have with one. right?
Right.
And you're only kind of seeing what's happening right there. So when we get this bird's eye view, it's really cool to see how things are working in different areas. And your agency is one of the ones that I'm truly impressed with out of all that I've seen.
Thank you.
Indianapolis, they're another one, Metro PD. They're one of the first ones I've worked with several years ago. They had an entire wellness unit. They great work. Lots of mentors I had there. Chicago is really working hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you guys have built shows it can be done.
It
You
really
know,
can. Yes.
so,
Yes.
so when there's a will, there's a way. And I also want to encourage, like, you know, if any of our instructors out there are having, or, you know, they have someone willing in the agency, but the agency is having a hard time, we have these resources now. We have Justin, we have Liz at CPD, we have people who are doing it that maybe can help and support with how that's happening.
Absolutely. We've already had other instructors in other areas reach out. It's been great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You know, you brought something else up, you know, the homicide you had in your agency. And right now I'm refining the content for our online instructor school. So I'm revisiting different concepts and, you know, how do I want to say this in an online format? And one thing that I just was speaking on was when you are a yoga instructor for first responders, you are more likely, you know, you're going to encounter things you wouldn't encounter teaching yoga in a studio. I have had 5 of my students killed in the line of duty. And that is not something that a yoga teacher at a studio or a gym would encounter. And, you know, so this work we're teaching, as you just said, right? You're helping the helpers. It's for them, but it's also for you.
Yes.
And then it's also for us, even the civilian instructors. This work, you have to apply it to yourself first.
Always.
If you're, it's a responsibility. Like, what's the Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility,
Yeah.
right? If you're putting yourself out there in a vulnerable position of helping your community, you have got to do the work yourself. Otherwise, again, like I say, you're being irresponsible, you're being reckless, you're going to be a liability. You know, so if you plan to do that, you have to take the responsibility. And that goes all the way back to the civilian yoga instructors. It's not just you going out to save the day. You are vulnerable to secondary traumatic stress. The first in-service training I ever taught, was for a peer support team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting in the, like, on the side waiting to be introduced, you know, and you should see my slide deck from back then. It was like 11 years ago. It's so bad. So bad. Anyway, I should like show all my instructors sometime the very first slide deck. But before I went up, there was a debrief on a helicopter crash, and that included some of their personnel. Wow. And they said, okay, here's what happened yesterday, and this is blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if you have any questions, come and see me. All right, everyone, Olivia is going to teach yoga. And I'm like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I realized, okay, part of when I start training other people to do this, which I did for a couple of years after that, it has to be included that you're going to be in those environments yourself, you know? So, so case in point with you guys.
And that's what we talk with our peer supporters about as well. If we're not willing to do the work ourselves, we're not going to be able to show up for the peers that need us to. Well, when they need us to most, right? So it is all about working on yourself at the same time.
And, you know, one thing that crosses my mind, I wonder if it crosses yours too, and maybe, you know, other officers that we're asking to take care of themselves. If I say to, you know, my husband, hey, I need 5 minutes to do my breath work or whatever, I feel bad. I feel guilty. Like I'm, you know, I notice that feeling and I still do it because I know I need to. But, you know, especially with we have a child. So I know that if I step away to do my meditation or breath work, he's watching the child and I'm putting that on him. So part of me crosses my mind like, oh, I'll just skip it today so I can does thoughts like that come up for you?
Always. It comes up for you and for me because we're helpers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's our natural trained instinct to make sure that everybody else is safe and has what they need. And you guys hit the nail right on the head with utilizing Dr. Gilmartin's hypervigilance cycle. It
Mm-hmm.
is so hard. Our bodies that's a natural reaction to start to feel guilty and not make the time to do that breath work or whatever recovery skill that you utilize to get yourself back ready for your next shift.
Yeah.
That's a natural occurrence that's happening that we're all fighting every day. And absolutely, our strength is in our vulnerability. So I tell my peers all the time, the stuff that we're trying to teach you, I struggle to implement myself at times, right? We're not perfect, but we always need to be working on ourselves to be able to
Right.
show up for everybody else.
Right.
So you're not alone in any way, shape, or form.
And I love that you said that too, that, you're showing that you're struggling too, because if someone sees like, oh, look at Justin, of course he's got his shit together. So he knows that he could, and I am not like that. It's so important for us to say like, yeah, you know what? I haven't done yoga in like 2 weeks because this, and this, and I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
And, and to be able to, sometimes I feel like in the westernized yoga world, the yoga teachers put on a pedestal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, they're coming in with their malas and I had a yoga teacher one time, malas, peace and love. I saw her flip someone off on the street after class, like in her car. I was like, dude, would have been better is if you come in and be like, oh my God, someone on the road just pissed me off. If I hadn't had yoga, I would have had road rage. Then we'd all relate to her and, instead of putting on a facade. So that's so important we're all trying, we're all doing the best we can.
Always.
And I love that, you are that for everyone else and, that they can see that you're real as well.
And if I can jump in and steal this as an opportunity to make sure that all of the instructors you sent to us were some of the most genuine, compassionate, and knowledgeable instructors that we could have had at that instructor school. Becca, Mark, Maggie, all of them, they showed up and they were genuine and they shared real life experiences, how the job has impacted them, and then how yoga has got them to get through that. We couldn't have been more grateful for that cadre that you sent out here because it was amazing.
I'm so happy to hear that. And yeah, they were very fortunate that, again, because of being transparent and also being not transparent just in vulnerability, but transparent in our core values. And this is what we believe in. We attract the right people, and so everyone you mentioned, they're fantastic, which makes me feel like I can step away from instructor school because it's fantastic. And sometimes I might say even better when I'm not there, because I feel like when I'm there, sometimes my other instructors, they want to do a good job. And then when I'm not there, they can truly be themselves, which I always want them to be. So that's really awesome to hear. How did YFFR come across your desk?
I knew that was going to be a question, and I was trying to dig back. How did that happen? Honestly, I think embarrassingly, it might have been through social media.
Embarrassing. Listen, that's where we get the messages out. So for sure.
I think it was honestly through social media. And then as soon as I learned about it, I kind of took a deep dive into the website. And when I looked at some of the main goals of the curriculum and the philosophies and how you show up for your peers, it was, honestly exactly what I knew we needed.
Good.
I think will help us build a much more robust program. And so I think unfortunately it was through social media.
Well, that's great. And that's why we say too, like why we want to take pictures if someone would allow us to take pictures, because we want folks to see themselves on social media and be like, oh, that is for me. Later today, we're filming a yoga class and at Albuquerque Fire Department. They're helping us out.
Awesome.
And I one of the guys to be our student. And he's kind of laughed and said, "Oh, you don't want me to be the student or whatever." And I was like, "No, no, no.
Yes.
We're not looking for this yoga model. You are the yoga model. You are
Yeah.
what we want, you know."
Right.
But that's because what they see on social media. So we're trying to switch that narrative. So that's cool that you saw that. And, you know, we really want agencies to know that by bringing us in, you will have a program. You know, it's not like here's some information and good luck. It's like, no, we want to make this sustainable.
Right.
So it's great that you saw that. You are aren't you speaking at the American Society of Evidence-Based Policing Conference? I had to read that because it's a lot.
I'll be honest. I did it as well. So that's to the due of my lieutenant, who is very proactive in evidence-based policing. Making sure that we're creating models that are proven to be effective and that where we're actually making a difference. And so, where I come from, the mental health world, I'm just like, what do you mean? We're going to do it because it's right. But a big component of this, right, is making sure that what we're doing is successful. And so that is what evidence-based policing is all about. So taking that model from being proactive on the street and bringing that in and making sure that we're creating that program, like I said earlier, that reaches in rather than expecting them to reach out. We want to try to measure and make sure that we are making an impact. And so we searched really hard to find a tool that could help us to do that, because there isn't a lot of tools out there. And we were very lucky to find the ProQual 5, which kind of helps measure some of the key components to wellness that we're looking to make sure that we're focusing on, to include minimizing burnout, checking and monitoring compassion satisfaction, and really just making sure that our officers aren't getting over fatigued by the amount of critical incidents that they're responding to, and monitoring that secondary trauma response, right? So, are they how often are they being exposed, and is that too much? And how to mitigate some of the effects of that. So we utilize the ProQual 5 to kind of start tracking that. We're very early in the process. We're implementing that as part of our annual in-service training, but we're starting to collect that data anonymously to protect the confidentiality for our personnel. But we're trying to track those and making sure that our support service programs are actually making a difference.
Oh, cool. Okay. So, and are you going to be reporting on that at the American Society of Evidence-Based Policing Conference?
Yeah, they're going to be. They want to hear where we're at so far. Some of the information that we're seeing and the trends that we're seeing, and where we're going to take the program from here. So
anecdotally, so you haven't. So I know you're in the process right now of really getting the numbers in, but anecdotally, first of all, was it that second incident you said that you really started, the wellness program started to come up? So around 2012, 2013.
2012. Yes.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So it's been 12 years approximately. And of course, the first few years of anything is the hardest and the slowest, right? Before you start gaining momentum.
Yeah.
So when things really started to get its, pacing going and things started to happen, anecdotally, do you feel like you've seen a change?
Absolutely. Especially as the years have progressed. Like I said, we came in at it's good things are often born out of tragedy. And we came in at a time as an agency where that generation of officers was really ready to see a change and really ready for a difference in how we take care of each other. And so when we started our peer support program, we had a lot of initial buy-in. But that's just where we started, right? Peer support, critical incident stress debriefs, that's just one component of a really comprehensive mental health and wellness program. But that's where we were as an agency. That's what we identified that we could immediately implement that would be successful, at basically low to no cost, and that our people would want to participate in. That's where we went with that avenue. But since then, we've been implementing different ideas, growing our program, expanding training, offering different opportunities for people to access help. And every year we are seeing people taking that proactive approach, reaching out before it's really a problem, right? Before we see those really career impacting or even potentially career-ending things happen in our own personal lives, in our own professional lives. These programs are definitely proactive versus reactive, and we're seeing numbers of reactivity have to go down because our proactive investment and buy-in into the program is always going up.
Another important thing I thought of with the proactive approach, and maybe this is the solution to this problem. And the problem is, I know that a lot of folks are, in the past at least, have been afraid to reach out for support because of getting their badge and gun taken away. And so I knew this one clinician who would be cash only, and and that's who the cops would go to, so there was no record, right? So it was this catch-22 of, oh yeah, here are these resources, come take advantage of them, we're doing such great things, but then if you do take advantage of them, we're gonna be looking at you, you're not right, something's wrong. So how have you guys addressed that? Or is it the fact that a lot of things are mandatory, or you make it proactive?
I can honestly attribute this to the fact that, I know I'm very lucky for this fact, because I know there are agencies out there that don't have this same circumstance, but I have now had 4 different chiefs that have completely backed everything and all of the programs that we are implementing from a wellness perspective. And I know that that's not always the case in agencies across the country, but to have that administrative buy-in has completely helped us, because we were kind of a sandwich model. So we had buy-in from our officers and we had buy-in from administration, and we were all able to kind of meet in the middle to make sure that we alleviated a lot of those stressors that a lot of other agencies have to navigate. The fact that, they're not going to be able to do the job if they admit that they need help. They're not going to be able to do the job if they admit that they need to go see a clinician to navigate some personal stressors that are going on. We were able to eliminate some of those concerns very quickly. Obviously, confidentiality is extremely important amongst our team and amongst the programs that we offer here. But if employees participated in those programs and chose to come back and talk about that built a lot of credibility for the program. They got to see that, hey, if I reach out for help, I will be okay. I will come back, and I will be put in that specialty assignment. I will get that K-9. I will be promoted. I will make an investigative captain, whatever their aspirations are in this profession, that getting help is actually a sign of strength and not a weakness, and you will be completely fine on the other end of that. And we were able to prove that pretty quickly, I think. I think, and I know that that's able to be done everywhere else.
Yeah, to show by example, and not even you'll be fine, but what if, like, wow, I'm impressed with the fact that you are creating longevity for yourself in this career, which means I trust to promote you, because I know that if you're feeling rocky, you're going to take care of it with the resources we have. I mean, to me, if I were the boss, I would feel like that is someone I would 100% trust, and that they trust their agency and they feel safe in their position,
Right.
So that's really, really cool. There are some CAD programs that have actually added our breathwork videos.
Really?
Yeah. So after a call, they can't put themselves back on for service until they do this 2-minute breath work. Yeah.
We're going to have to talk some more about that.
And I remember the one that and Eric will know, and I will put it in show notes, and I'll correct this and everything so I get the right name, who we're exactly using. But, it's doing things like that are like, you don't get a choice, because you have to. It's like, you wouldn't give someone a gun and say, okay, go out and get firearms training. We trust that you will. Like, no, we're going to make you do it,
Yeah.
And also my big thing is with, qualification too. You have to qualify for your firearm. So why don't we put someone on the M-Wave machine and make sure they can regulate themselves in 3 minutes, and then you get to graduate the academy. Absolutely. I mean, that doesn't seem too far off to me.
No.
I don't know. That's what I want to see one day. And we're going to be working for we work for the National Park Service, but we're going to be doing a peer support conference with them, where I'm going to give all their peer support personnel a little field guide of breath work and stuff. So that's another, I'm just thinking all these ways that you proactively can put it out there, so when we get that done, I'll send some your way if you'd like.
Please do. Yes, would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. it's just so fun and, honestly refreshing, and it's happening more and more, but like to talk to someone who is just you just seem like a yes person when it comes to this stuff, and obviously you've been doing it for years, but nothing is raising an eyebrow. It's like, yes, this is what we should be doing, and it's very fun to be able to talk about everything that's possible with proactive resilience.
Yeah, it has to be if we're going to get people to engage in it, right? And it has to be something they believe in. That we're always asking for feedback too from our officers. We say at the end of every training, if this isn't something you like or this isn't something you think you would use, you got to tell us. And let's face it, they're usually pretty good at that, right? They're very honest.
They have no problem telling. I got a evaluation on my yoga class for an in-service training for the sheriff's office, and they used my evaluation on the yoga class to bitch about the entire wellness program, and I was like, not responsible for the entire wellness. They just wanted to bitch about it, And so I think that's great, because you're like, listen, let's use the time and energy we have for what's going to work. And also, as you've seen, we've done with YFFR, can we not make wellness stupid? Like, I feel like in the past, wellness has been like me, and like kid gloves. And of course, no one wants to do it because it's stupid. If you make it real, if you make it like, or if you bring in dogs, then everyone's like, yes, I'm in. Yeah. And you guys have really done well with that. One thing I would like to end with is when you were on watching our webinar, you answered someone's question about, hey, what's the first thing I do? How do I even bring this up or, to an agency? And we do cover this in instructor school for civilians, but being inside an agency, what would you recommend to our civilian YFFR instructors as like the first thing they do? They got their certification. What do they do next?
Yeah, I think it's all about, and we kind of talked about it on the webinar, right, is being yourself, being honest, like show up, be genuine. I think talking about some of the core principles of the curriculum are super important. I don't think any of your instructors are ever going to meet someone from administration that doesn't want to build resilience, doesn't want to increase performance, and doesn't want to make sure that they're giving their people tools to do a better job out there on the street, right? And so you talk about some of those core principles and some the aspects that the employees are going to have access to as part of the curriculum, and you'll automatically get the conversation started. But I think you guys make it so easy to do this, because if you're able to talk about the application of these skills to the actual job itself, and the way that you want your officers to be able to take a deep breath when they're in a stressful situation, so that way they don't overreact, or they don't have that reaction that's going to find them on the 6 o'clock news. You want to have those skills, so that way your officers can immediately not only better control themselves, but bring all the situations out on the street to a peaceful and quick resolution that actually help people solve problems. So, show up, be honest, be patient. Remembering the mantra of there's two things that we hate, right? The way things are and change. Don't get discouraged if you get turned away right away. Before we even heard of YFFR, we had an amazing local yoga instructor that came in, and the way that he tried to initially get buy-in was we have an MPAL program here in the city, and he's like, well, I'm going to charge $5 for a 1-hour session, but I'm going to donate 4 of that to your local MPAL and come on in. And he was very successful for many years, but this was well before we even really started a wellness program here at the agency. But he was patient, he was genuine, didn't have all the tools and ammunition that you guys give your instructors, but it can absolutely work if they're willing to put in the time.
I love that donation thing, and that's something we could actually say to our instructors too. Like, if you charge X amount of class, or charge, if you want to charge more to do this, that's fine, because all of our instructors, if they're civilians, they charge whatever they want per class.
Yep.
So let's say they would normally charge $30. Well, say you'll charge $50, but you'll donate some back, or 25 of it back, or whatever. But I think that's a great method to get in there. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, there was something else I was going to ask about that, which I'll remember later tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so oh, I know what I was going to say. Also, the data. So the evidence-based policing is important. That's why you're collecting data. We have some research studies. When you show folks these numbers, they can't say no. Otherwise, they're fully like saying, no, I don't want to help my personnel, you
Right.
know. So
Yeah.
that's why data is so important, because you could do the best pitch. You can be like, okay, well, no, thank you. But if you're like, here, this is showing that this helps. So if you say no, you're saying you don't want this for your officers. That's huge.
It really is.
The patience thing is important too, because unlike the private sector where one person can say, yep, let's do it, here's a check for $50,000, in the public sector, you've got a lot of red tape, you've got a lot of lines, you've got to go through line items, budgets are already allocated, like they may have to wait till the following year. So taking time, and consistent, communication and showing the data.
Yeah. And the data helps. It helps with even especially the naysayers. If when you're able to show some of those statistics, especially the ones that you guys provide in not only the buy-in package for agencies that are thinking about this, but even the actual class presentations alone. We had a lot of corrections officers in our class, and I can absolutely tell you when that slide went up that the average life expectancy for corrections officers is 18 months after retirement, you could hear a pin drop in our class.
Yeah, they're
Um,
like,
it's eye-opening, and I had an opportunity to share that with some administrators and some of their new peer support team members a week right after that class. And that gets buy-in immediately. It at least gets their attention, right? That, oh, if it's not this, I need to do something. Um,
exactly,
you can't argue with facts.
right, and getting that attention is step one, just getting
Yeah.
them to listen. The dark humor of public safety. When I've put that slide up before in my in-service training, there was like a guy that was about to retire, and a guy next to him slapped his back and said, well, nice knowing you.
But you can't say anything but that.
And everyone laughed because the truth is uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
they make a joke out of it, but
Yep.
well, gosh, Justin, you're doing really amazing work. I am so honored that you hosted our instructor school, and even more honored that your personnel enjoyed it, took tools from it, and are going to plug it in, and that we are part of your very successful wellness program. That means the world to me. When is the conference that you're going to be speaking at and presenting this information?
And so we'll be out it's Spokane, Washington, right at the end of May.
Okay.
So we'll be out there May 28th through June 1st.
Okay. Very cool. Enjoy Spokane. It's gorgeous out
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for taking the time to talk about this. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate that you're part of the YFFR team. Just means the world to have excellent people like you.
It's an honor and privilege to be invited to come on the show. And honestly, it feels great to know that we have you backing up the program. From all the instructors to yourself and Eric, I don't have any hesitation to reach out to you for anything that we need. And
Good.
When starting something new that we all recognize is so important, it's great to know we have the very best backup to rely on. So thank you so much for everything.
You just made my day, because that's exactly how I hope our instructors feel. So the fact that you do, awesome. Thank you for
that. I genuinely left that class thinking like, you guys are the sirens in the alley, right? When what I was envisioning is, you're on that bad call, you're in that fight, and you've called for backup, and that can seem like forever when it's coming. But after that class, I was like, these guys are they're the sirens in the alley. It was amazing.
Justin.
It was you guys truly we I don't know if you know, we had almost 45 participants from 13 different agencies across the state, and almost every single one of them came up to me after class and said, we absolutely should have had this from day one. And we're so almost saddened by the fact that we didn't. So this is so long overdue. It could be easily implemented into any first responder agency of any size, anywhere in the country. And I'm just grateful we found you guys when we did.
Ah,
Going to
well,
only make it so much better.
same. Grateful for you. Well, why don't we wrap this up with
That's great.
one more little visit with Pat? It's Patch or Patches?
Patch. Yep, Patch singular. So
Patch.
yep.
Duh. Okay.
It's actually after dispatch. So
Oh my God. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
we did a citywide vote when we got them.
Patch. I know, dogs don't understand cameras, I've noticed. They're like, what is
Yeah, he was totally not a fan when we got him, but lots of treats, lots of belly rubs, and he's slowly getting used to them. So
How old is he?
he's 4 years old now. He'll be 5 in October.
October what?
October 23rd.
Oh, what a nice birthday. Oh, you're wearing your St. Patrick's Day collar?
Gotta be ready for St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, sweetheart. My aunt has a dog. It's not like a full German Shepherd, but it's bigger dog and having a hard time training him.
Yep.
And so brought in a canine officer to train him. It took one session and this dog was like, whatever you want, right? So we have a 6-month-old toy poodle who is 5 pounds. And so we just moved, but where we lived in Castle Rock, Colorado, I taught for my police department there. And I really wanted to get one of their canine officers and say, can you come over and please train my dog? He's such an asshole. And then come over and it's this little toy poodle. And I just want to film it and see the interaction. He would just leave. Yeah, anyway, well, Justin, thank you for everything and look forward to talking more and more.
Me too. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's, like I said, it's going to be game changing for us. So appreciate everything you do.
Appreciate you too. Hey, before we go, I want to remind you that training your mental and physical health is incredibly important, especially for those working in high-stress jobs like first responders.
And if you're interested in learning more about yoga for first responders, visit yogaforfirstresponders.org for our on-demand training app, online course platform, in-person training, and more.
Like this podcast, subscribe, and give us a great review. We are so happy to have you part of the YFFR mission.